I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here. And the first item on our agenda will be our weekly commission reports. So Commissioner Moore, did you have some things on your agenda this week?
Actually, it looks kind of light this week, so I may have forgotten something, but on Thursday, I have a meeting scheduled with the state auditor's office, and that looks like it for the week.
Okay. Commissioner McDowell?
I also have a meeting with the state auditor on Thursday. I have my EDC luncheon at the PUD, and I have 2 meetings scheduled with 2 different citizens.
I may
That's my
be
week.
attending the EDC luncheon as
Okay.
well. I
All right.
had forgotten about that.
Okay.
Okay, and tomorrow, which is Tuesday, I'll be having a staff briefing in the morning, and I will be attending my MACECOM board meeting in the afternoon. Wednesday morning, an EDC board meeting, and then in the afternoon, or at 11 o'clock, I believe, I will be meeting with the state auditor also. So that completes our commission reports. Next is a general public comment period, and it looks like we have some people signed in. So,
We do. We have Marilyn Vogler.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. I spoke last week about salaries, and I want to correct in case I made a misimpression. I had no intention of criticizing anyone who is in office now or anyone who has been, or the fact that the salaries at one point were set where they are now. I know you all work hard. I know you put in hours and hours some weeks and not many others. I wasn't being negative about what you're doing to earn that salary. I was simply saying we can't afford it, which is a different matter entirely. And particularly, let me give you an example. I was told that we needed an additional police car, but that we were not purchasing one because the money wasn't in the budget. I don't know that this is true. It was something passed on to me. But if that's the case, it's an example of what we're not affording in part, or at least in some way, because of the salaries and the benefits that you all receive. And so I have a suggestion. I know that the RCW prohibits either reducing or increasing salaries of commissioners while they are in office. I don't know if the same holds true about benefits, health insurance, dental insurance, cell phone allowance, per diem. And if the prohibition does not apply to those benefits the same way it does to salary, I would suggest that if we're foregoing a police car, it might be a good idea to immediately reduce or do away with those benefits so that we can afford the things that really are crucial to public safety and public health. Thank you.
thank you for your comments.
And we have Randy Lewis.
Hi everybody, Randy Lewis. As you all know, there are several flaws with the deal the city made with Mason County Garbage. However, these will be addressed at a future time. For now, we would like to comment on the proposed ordinance with respect to putting a 31% solid waste utility tax into law. This was described as a cleanup item, actually putting into law a 31% solid waste utility tax for a contract signed months ago. Except that's not exactly what the contract with Mason County Garbage says. The contract stipulates the utility tax is calculated in 2 parts. The first part is a 26% utility tax hidden within a total charge listed on the bill. As the Director of Public Works mentioned in the Shelton Out Loud forum, this 26% is multiplied by the base Mason County service charge, also hidden on the bill, to arrive at the hidden utility tax. This hidden utility tax is added to the hidden base Mason County garbage charge is equal to the total charge labeled service on the bill, except it is not just a service charge. It is the Mason County garbage service charge plus the 26% utility tax. The second calculation, as can be seen on the bill, is 5% charged against the total charge we have just been talking about, the hidden Mason County charge plus utility tax, plus the hidden utility tax. The 5% utility tax is a tax on a tax. It is utility tax squared. Therefore, if you want to use a single percentage against the Mason County service charge to arrive at the total utility tax, that number is not 31%. It is about 32.3% based on the comments by the Director of Public Works. Or you can use the 31%, but then the Mason County garbage base rate would need to be changed to arrive at the same number on the bill, or make some other change to make everything internally consistent. My suggestion as a start is to more precisely define in the official documents and the invoices what actually is the 5% and 26% and 31% applied against. And the last question, can the change utility tax in the ordinance be made retroactive to July 1st without specifying that in the ordinance? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
We
Okay,
have no one else.
okay, thank you very much. Item number D is a business agenda, and we have a couple of items under that. The first is a discussion about our mission, vision, values, and goals update. Now we'll turn the meeting over to our city manager, Ryan Wheaton, at this time.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have in front of you is the draft that our strategic plan committee has put together. So at the bottom of the page, you'll see the mission, vision, values, and goals. And just to recap where we started back in July, this team started working on updating our mission, vision, values, and goals and preparing a strategic plan for you later this year, so likely at the end of November. And that process started with individual interviews with the three of you that was done with a consultant. Those interviews allowed us to review the key points that the three of you share and match those up with where our current strategic plan is and provide some information. I'm excited to bring this forward because the team that we put together was really not only cross-functional. We had people from all the departments, but we had people from different levels. We had front-level staff, we had department directors, and then we had the input from the three of you. We also put this out online after Commissioner Moore pointed out that she wanted some more public input, and we allowed people to give us input as to what they thought about these and helped us refine some of them as well. And then the individual department directors actually took this information back to their teams before we had our last strategic plan team meeting and got some input from them specifically on the values. So just to list what's at the bottom, the proposed mission is to build a safe, vibrant community for life, work, growth, and recreation. The vision is Shelton is a community of active lifestyles, accountable government, engaged citizens, safe streets, strong work ethic, and inspiring leaders. The values that our city staff worked on are honesty and integrity, customer service, responsibility, deliver results, teamwork, and innovation. And the two goals that we would like to focus on for the next couple of years are economic development to increase financial stability, housing, infrastructure, and job growth. And the second one is actively build Shelton's reputation and pride through strategic public engagement activities to support its vision. So with that, we're asking for some feedback and hopefully to get the three of you to concur that we now go to the next step where we'll complete a strategic plan that we'll bring forward for adoption by the three of you, hopefully at the end of November.
So could we, I just got this and I looked at it and I just put a couple little notes on it. Could we make that decision in a week or so from now?
Sure.
It says here, it says approval by the end of 2017. So if it's okay with everybody, I would like just a week to kind of think about this, and then
Sure.
I would be more than happy to give you any notes I had on it. And it all looks very good, and I can see a lot of really good work there. So unless the other two commissioners wanted just to vote on this in its current form without any other questions. So that's how we do it.
I'm fine waiting. I'm okay.
I don't know.
1 week.
Okay.
Week?
Yeah.
Wait a week? All right. So it appears that we want to take this, review it, I mean, this is going to be on the wall for a long time, so I think if there's any little questions or anything, now would obviously be the time to catch them. So, and then we'll come back if you want to put it on our next week's schedule, then I think we can do that.
Did we have any input from the public after?
Yeah, we did.
Great.
And we brought that input forward and spent about a half an hour discussing the points that were raised at our when we had the strategic plan team at their third work session.
Good. That's what we wanted.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wheaton. All right, and you again on our fee schedule update.
We are bringing this forward. I provided this to you guys a couple weeks ago and mentioned it again last week, that we have to update the fee schedule to reflect the vote that you made on the building permit fees. And in doing so, we usually do this once a year where we bring it together. So we thought it might make sense to actually look at this and get some input from you before we bring this forward. So what the plan is that we'll get some input from you today, and then we'll brief again in about 2 or 3 weeks where we bring forward the changes that we have to make based on the building permit fees. Anything that staff see as potentially needing a change, that we'll bring that forward in a couple weeks. And if there's anything today that you want to highlight, not necessarily telling us that you think there's a problem with it, but if you want us to research any of these individual fees, we can do that. I know that one of the things that we're looking at is a fee for special event permit applications. We want to address 2 things. One is providing garbage service at these events, and the other one is trying to get the message across that doing those special event permits early is very helpful. So looking at ways to discourage people from giving us a permit for an event that is going to be held in a couple days when
Right.
we've had.
And then have to arrange garbage and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
those are the ones that we know of. If there are any here that you want to discuss, and I can mention that generally what you see in front of you are, unless they're mandated by the state, so public records, that's one that we'll talk about in a couple weeks. These fees are generally based on what it actually costs staff to produce that service or that product. So that's what you see for the most part in here, and we'll take a look at some. If there are some that you'd like us to look at, we can note those
What
down.
is the documents provided at public hearing, no fee? What would that be? What would the public hearings be?
Like the budget documents come in, they're placed on the table, if it was in the, or in the evening area where we
Okay.
have our meetings. They would be put out on the table. It would be the budget document, it would be any supporting documents, ordinances or anything for a public hearing relating to sort of the public works processes. So when we bring those down, we don't have. any
So
charge
no
for
fee
that.
when requested with 1 year of hearing?
Yes.
So,
So then if somebody came in and said, hey, you had a hearing on this date, I would like to see the attachments that were provided that evening at the meeting, we would provide those for them at
okay,
no charge.
all right. Within a year? They went and came in anytime
Right.
after that?
Sure.
Okay, all right,
Yes, that evening and with that 1 year. period of
Okay.
time.
Okay, I had some questions about, on page 6 is the code enforcement fees. And I know that at the Shelton Out Loud, one of the concerns expressed was on code enforcement and what we could do to strengthen that. So I know that some cities, and this would probably not be a very popular thing amongst part of the population and very popular amongst others, is we've discussed somewhat in the past about adding fees for buildings that sit there vacant for like bank-owned properties. The property up on Fifth Street that was clean, is it Fifth? No, up on East Street, that was cleaned a number of years ago is still sitting there vacant, and, you know, there are rodents that are living there. And so I know we have talked about that as a way to kind of help out our code enforcement budget, I guess. And then also under code enforcement, it's pretty, you know, property improvement fee. I assume that's when we have to send someone in to clean it up. Is that
Where are you looking?
on page 6 as well? It's just the only
Very top.
entry under,
Oh, I see at the top.
yeah.
Mark, do you know if we've ever used that?
Not in my tenure, I haven't seen it applied, so I don't know.
How long you been here?
25 years.
Well, doesn't come up every day, does it?
Well, I'm just wondering if we need to look seriously at it. It does seem to be a problem that our community wants to see.
We'll take a look and get an explanation of it.
So
for next
Okay,
what, Tracy, so what are you asking for that?
I'm asking if we should look at some additional fees under code enforcement so that we can do a more active role in code enforcement.
Okay.
And I agree with that
Yeah.
100%. 100%. I think that we have a lot of vacant buildings. We have people that, banks that own buildings that don't maintain them. And I've said this several times, windows are broken and they allow them to be broken, you know. So if we need more teeth in it or more money into that department, I think that's a great idea.
The other, I don't know, there are things that other cities that are doing things that are helping get their cities cleaned up, and it seems to work positively. There is a potential for a per-day charge if they get a warning how many days. If it were lower, I realize that we have a hearings examiner for many of the really egregious cases, but maybe there are some gentle nudges we could get for people not to leave their washers and dryers out by the road and things like that.
Would that have to do with, like, if someone is dismantling, they would have a certain amount of time? They can't take their own sweet time dismantling their house, right?
Yes, I think maybe so.
So you're not
Okay.
pointing to any particular
no,
project?
no.
are you?
No, I'm just saying.
Okay.
For
no.
instance.
Curious.
For instance.
instance.
Yeah.
Also, and I myself have been guilty of this, is sometimes we have way too many vehicles that are parked on our city streets, and I don't know if that's, some areas, you get so many parking passes for neighborhoods, and if you go above those parking passes, there are ways to limit the additional cars. So those are just the things that I was thinking that would maybe make a big difference in our city. I would be most in favor of, if we could only choose one or two, I would be most in favor of adding fees for vacant buildings, because that does cost our city money with the police checking on them, with the deterrent.
I think that's a
for-
good idea.
For
Yeah.
others living there.
I
Yeah.
personally don't know about that particular thing, just because a fee on a vacant building. I know that we had talked about having a fee for the water or sewer hookup or something to a building, but I'm not positive that if a building is vacant, until somebody can sell a building, or I don't know that we want to do that. But I am definitely for cleaning up the city.
Yeah, I thought that was what
so-
you really were
Well,
agreeing with before.
Not that part, but I do think that cleaning up the city and having possibly stronger rules on especially houses where people are, piling junk, or it's a vacant house that kids are breaking into. The program that we had that I really thought was really a good program, and I think elements of it can still be implemented, was when we had the abatement process. I was excited that we had 10 houses, and we contacted those people, and we said, you got to either take care of this or we're going to take care of it. And out of the 10, 6 of them did it because of the kind of pressure we put on them. And and again, don't quote me on exact numbers, but there was like 4 of them that didn't. 2 of them were negotiated some way, and then it only came down to 1 or 2 that refused to work with us. So I believe all that documentation or all that on the abatement program is still in existence. And we put the bad houses on a list, and we said, hey, you got a house that's got a problem, you got to either take care of it or we're going to take care of it. And I think that would help a lot. It's called the abatement program that we did do that. And so Mark might know a little bit about that, but that would be something I think was good, because we put the pressure and 6 automatically took care of it, And then we had the ability to come back and do that, so.
Well, and I didn't mean to imply if a renter moved out that you immediately have to start
No, but
paying a
it
fee.
sits there for a year,
But
Wendy.
we do have, for example, as a great example, the house on East Street that has sat there vacant, has been cleaned up by volunteer citizens, and still sits there to be a detriment to the neighborhood.
Is it a house or business?
It's a house and
House,
it's
okay.
owned by a bank.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I would agree that a little more pressure on the banks. I was at one of our AWC things, and there was a little bit of a problem with cities enforcing things on banks, but it can be done, okay? And back to buildings, though, let me use an example that I know of. I have a friend that ran into some hard times, and his building became vacant, and it's there, and this person takes care of it. It's boarded up. It isn't able to be broken into. Well, this gentleman has pretty hard times. I mean, you're talking Social Security and part-time jobs for the city to find him. You know what I'm saying? I think that it just has to be the delinquent people that are allowing people to break into it, but to have a vacant building and then.
That
I don't
was
know,
what
you
I
know?
was referring to,
More
is
than-
buildings that are not being kept up, buildings that are just sitting there being a
Year after
liability.
year, Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or
Oh,
even month after
yeah.
month, that if there isn't some incentive for, especially the banks, I think,
Oh, especially the banks
to
can
get,
afford to do that.
if
That's
there's no
right.
incentive for them to clean them up, get them used again, then
Mm-hmm.
we don't really have any teeth.
I agree.
I wasn't referring to buildings that are being kept up.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. And this is my marked up copy. I spent an hour doing it. You can have that there. And again, a lot of question marks because the one statement I would say that if we have a fee schedule and if something has fallen through the cracks since like 1947 or something to where we're charging $10 and pretty much the going rate is $100, but I don't think we got a lot of that stuff because, you know, every year we review this stuff. So that's my take on that, and I'll turn that into you at this
Was there a
time.
time you wanted this back?
As soon as you can get it to us.
Okay.
Okay, I had one other, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the water connection fees. Where did my notes go? And the suggestion was made that we require them not to pay the whole amount at the upfront. Did we
Right.
reach any kind of resolution on that?
Yeah, we're working on that, I think. You guys bring that back next week or the following week?
We were talking about the TIF fee?
Yeah, it was
It was
TIF.
the TIF fee is what we were actually talking about, and we're gonna bring it back in a few weeks. We've had Kristen, the city attorney, working on some language, so.
Okay, well, my concern with that is that if someone paid for half, got the connection, then they decided they weren't going to build or weren't going to use it, then I'm wondering if we would potentially use a lot of cities' resources with legal fees if we had to go that route to collect the rest of those fees. That was my concern with that.
I think that is a concern, but I don't know that there, at this point, with what we've found, I don't think there's a way around it at this point. There's been some.
Unless we require the full amount up front.
There's actually been some legislation that you can't require the full amount
really?
upfront. So, yeah, that may not be an option for us.
Okay, yeah, I'll look forward to that update. Because that was my concern with that, is that we could easily spend a lot of money. Okay, thank you.
On my marked up copy, if you can't read my handwriting, I'm sorry
That's
about
fine.
that. It was kind of just, I was marking out and I says, well, why don't I just turn this in? So, okay, is there any more concerning this last subject on the fee schedule? Commissioner McDowell, you have any
No,
more
no,
questions on that?
I need to look through it a little bit more before I ask some more questions.
Okay, very good. Are we ready to move on to the next item? That would be number 3, our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and the recommendations that has been passed on from that committee. I am a member of that group, and we had an extra executive kind of session, and we talked a lot. We take it very seriously what we do with this money. And so at this point, our Assistant City Manager, Vicki Look, is going to tell us what we came up with.
Okay, well, this is a meeting that we have every year. Our lodging facilities in the city of Shelton collects taxes and pays it into the state, and the state releases some of that funding back to us. And when we get that, what we do is take a look at applications that are submitted in August, And we have a committee, and the committee is made up of the mayor. He is the chair of that committee. And I would say that it's not an executive session. It's actually under the Open Public Meetings Act. So we do provide notice and invite the public in to sit through those meetings if they choose to.
Sorry, we just had an extra meeting this
Yes,
year.
yes, we did have an
Extra
extra meeting for clarification
There you go.
purposes on one of the requests. So on that committee is Annette McGee, who serves as a representative to a couple of the organizations that are eligible to put in a grant request and accept funding, and also Dwayne Wilson, who represents the Christmastown Kiwanis and the mayor. And then we have two of the lodging facilities who are invited to the meeting to be representatives. They generally do not come to our meetings, so we have a quorum with the three of you there, and the mayor is the tiebreaker if needed. We had in 2017, we've been hearing reports from those organizations that submitted applications, and that's the Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce. They are a visitor center, and we did award them $16,750 in 2017. Christmastown Kiwanis, which is bluegrass from the forest, collected about $7,000 to help promote that event. Mason County Forest Festival was $8,000. The Historical Society Car Show was $1,800, and also the museum, the visitor center down there. We help them with about $10,000 in grant funding. The Mason County Chamber of Commerce last year did ask for additional funding for signage along the highway out there. It was part of the Downtown Visioning Committee's recommendation that we get more businesses that can be approved for signage out there on the highway to get that going and draw people into the downtown core. And we also then did have the AABC Pee Wee World Series that we sponsored over the summer. We will get a report on that a little later about how the attendance was, and I believe we're working on that report with that group of people. The total request for 2017 was $87,260. Tourism grant applications submitted for 2018 were the same, with the exception of the Mason County Chamber asked for a little bit more funding, $17,410. Christmastown Kiwanis was the same. Mason County Forest Festival was the same. The car show, the museum visitor center, all submitted grants for the same funding amounts. The Mason County Chamber of Commerce did come in with another request for the Downtown Visioning Committee's signage along the highway, and that was a little confusing to us, so we did ask them to come back in for a second meeting for clarification, which I'll explain in a moment. But we did have a new one from the City of Shelton, Sports Tourism. And what that was is a $10,000 request for grant funding to help us supplement a person that would be scheduling events for all the different things that we could do here, whether that be baseball, our disc golf facility up there, the property that we have, those sorts of things. And that was pretty well received by the committee. So they did make a recommendation after meeting with the Chamber of Commerce that they actually did withdraw the 2017 request for signage funding because it had changed, and they needed to kind of take a look at that again. So they will not be collecting the $13,000 and some odd dollars for 2017, and they requested a little lower fees for grant funding for 2018 at $13,325. And the committee did look at all these and made a recommendation to fund all of them with the idea that the signage would only be paid as they get people signed up for the signage would go up, and it would be a reimbursement to that signage. So if they have one or two or three businesses in downtown area that were to get signage up there, they would be reimbursed rather than we wouldn't be giving them funding in advance. In addition to that, the motels downtown here, the city center and the Shelton Inn would take priority, because really what our intention is with this grant funding is to bring people into town to spend the night. So they made a recommendation, the committee did, for 2018 for $67,535. I believe we have probably projected around $55,000 in revenues for next year. So it does take the ending fund balance down just a little bit, but we would think that the funding for the signage is kind of a one-time thing, and it wouldn't be an ongoing expense unless the commission, it was requested and the commission considered that. So what happens with this is that committee makes their recommendation, and the city commission has the option of funding them all as recommended by the committee, or not funding it, but you don't have the legal ability to change the funding.
Micromanage.
Give them more or give them less. So you can fund it at the rate as recommended by this committee, or you could say we would prefer not to fund it at this time. But that's pretty much the way that goes. Did you have any questions for
I
me?
did.
Okay.
I did. Ryan just left the room, and I kind of wanted him to be here for my question. But
Okay.
I'm sure he's coming back.
I think he probably is.
Maybe I can just say the question, and then we can,
Or I could give you a little bit of a timeline, and he will be back soon.
yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, and I
Okay.
think it's important what I have to say about this, and because it's something we had talked about, but this would be the arena that we need to discuss this. So, can we come back to you? Can we go, and then when Ryan comes back, can we come back to this? Would that be?
okay, I just wanted to point that this recommendation would be to go on into the budget. And if next week you would give the green light or whatever, and then we could include that in the 2018 budget, whatever the funding is that you approve, and then it's approved during the budget process.
Okay, I did have a question about the, last year, the Pee Wee World Series they didn't ask for funding again this year?
They did not ask for funding. They were a little light on the participants that they brought into town. I think everybody's aware of that. They didn't get the number of teams that they had hoped to bring in. I think that we may possibly have the series here for the next couple of years, but they would be doing that and promoting that with with no additional funding from the city.
So they would still be working off the city's contribution of the 30,000?
Yes, I would think so,
hopefully.
and we do need to have them in for a report
Oh, yeah.
on the 2017 activities, so you should still hear a report from those organizers that let us
Okay.
know what it is they did and what they hope to continue to do. They did not submit a request for the next year.
Well, I just know it was kind of disappointing that we had such great hopes for that event, and
Yes, it was, and I think for them as well.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure that my question has anything to do with this funding thing. I think we could actually vote on this section, and then I could bring up my concern about this when Ryan comes back. So,
I do believe that I just asked that you concur with the Lodging Advisory Committee and put it on for action next week, and then we would take public comment at that time. And I just want everybody to know, the public included, that these applications that were submitted are on file with the city clerk, Jamie Ogg. And so if anybody wants to read those in detail, we can certainly make those available for anybody that wants to look through those
got 'em
tourism
right here.
applications.
Okay.
okay, so I guess we concur to place this on the action agenda for October 17, 2017.
Okay, thank
Is
you.
that correct? Okay. And the question I had, thank you for coming back, Ryan. I wanted you to be here for this. When we were talking about the signage, and part of what the chamber is doing was, they're one part of, the city is one part of, Green Diamond was one part of the visioning process, and we're moving some of those ideas forward. I had an idea that they have a certain number of spaces available, and I recommended that the city maybe find some money and that we get either the downtown Shelton Business District, or we get our downtown historic district on the sign out there. And so we would have to be, whether we pay or whatever, and Heidi talked about that. There are certain requirements. The state requires that you have to have, like if you're a business, you have to be open 6 days a week to get on that sign. And a lot of businesses, myself included, aren't. But at that time, I thought it would be a great idea to have our historical districts presence up there on the highway, on the sign. I don't know what that would cost or where the money would come from, but I think I would throw that up, that I would entertain a motion, or I would be happy to go along with trying to get a section of that signage for our historical district.
So I would be in favor of that as well, maybe visit historic downtown Shelton or something like that, so that would encompass the whole.
And of course, that award would not be through the tourism application process, but budgeted through the general fund.
Would be the possibility of budget item. Okay. So that concludes that.
Yep.
Were you okay with that
I
idea?
am fine and
Okay,
dandy.
yeah?
Yep.
You look a little tired. Did you go on a trip or something?
I can still recuperate.
Hey, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
here.
let's move forward then, and we'll take that into consideration. The next is, Tim is going to talk to us about some IT issues.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Here just to bring you up to date and about our city phone system, the replacement phone system that we are engaged with HCC. We have just recently had Kristen French review a purchase agreement and Exhibit A for the HCC project. And we have agreement with HCC on that. The document that you have, the Exhibit A, in your packet is, there are a couple of minor edits in that, and that will be, you'll get a fresh, up-to-date copy for the next week's documents in your packet there. But we have an agreement with HCC, and we're moving forward. And what we're asking for is that at next week's meeting, that you would concur at this meeting to include it on the action agenda for next week's meeting. And just open for any questions that you might have, Mr.
I had a
Mayor.
question.
Sure.
And I rambled in my brain what this might be, but what is RFP?
A request for proposal. So that was the process that began the whole, publicly began the whole project, where we were requesting companies to submit proposals for
Okay.
replacement of that.
All right.
So you're looking at 96 digital telephones?
We have a hybrid phone system. It's not like a portion of the phones are digital, and then a section of our city phone system is going to be installed as IP phones, the Internet Protocol. So they're
Okay.
actually going to be plugged into our Ethernet network
Okay.
and connecting back to the PBX or the brain back in
Don't
the
know-
Civic
understand a
Center.
word you're saying. Anyway,
I can draw you a map.
96 of those, there'll be 96. So how much does that come out to per phone?
Well, I have the specifics in the proposal that we agreed on, but we have, the 96 is the rough number. We've had quite a few staffing changes since the project began, so we may have a few in reserve that we'll be putting in place once we add more staff.
I was kind of shocked at that number,
What's that?
24,000.
You should have seen the other proposals
Yeah.
that came in.
Yeah, we had some that were,
Well, I
Quite
I
spending.
probably would be shocked at any proposal, but that one like, whoa. Anyway, yeah.
There
And
were
it's
some-
really good to have, to keep it with Hood Canal.
we were, well, even beyond that, we were so limited in the scope and what we had to jump through to even move a phone. I think Ryan has a story that he can tell you about his phone when he moved his office, what it took just to move phones within the city, and the cost involved, because we had to have vendors come in and do the work. This new system, most of the work is going to be done by the two IT folks, Chuck and I. We'll be able to move phones and make changes, and
Hood Canal will
And do
come in
all
and
that.
do all the basic,
they have our,
everything. and
yeah,
then-
they'll be setting up the system initially, and then we'll be able to maintain it mostly in-house, so.
That'll be
Okay.
a cost
Absolutely.
cut there. Good.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay, it appears that we concur to move the HCC purchase agreement to the action agenda, October 17th.
Thank you very much.
2017. Thank you very much, Tim. All right, at this time, we have some administration reports, and it appears the first one is from our Assistant Manager, Vicki Look.
Well, thank you again. As you know, we've been pretty busy trying to prepare the budget and getting all those things in order, and as well as I've been preparing to start negotiations with 3 of our labor groups. So that's always an interesting and fun time of the year. So we've been doing that. We also, the directors made a decision on what to do with the facilities position that was vacated, and they have created a crew lead position, and we will be filling that in the next week or so, and then along with creating an assistant crew lead position to help us with facilities and parks and those sorts of things. So that's a very good, efficient use of staff for the city. So we're happy that that's moving along, and we'll get that behind us and start to.
Is that in-house, the hiring?
It is in-house,
Yay.
yes. It
Good.
will be.
Okay.
One of our crew leads is absorbing the facilities, but then he's going to need some help.
Oh,
So
very good.
we will
Okay.
be opening that position up soon. And we've been working on records management and public disclosure and a lot of those other things that go along with the administrative services of the city. So that's my report.
Any questions or comments? I guess I don't know if we do questions or comments when you do these reports. Should we do that, or?
You can ask
We
me
can, right?
questions if you have any.
I don't have
I don't
any.
either.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Next is, we don't have NOLA here, but are we going to?
I can give a brief update. if you'd
Okay,
like.
sure.
And it'll just be the 2 things that they're working on. So they are obviously working on the 2018 budget prep. You're going to see that complete budget proposal at the end of this month, so you got about 2 weeks for that. And then we were going to do the 2017 budget amendment today, but since Nola's out and has been out for a couple days, we're going to push that off till probably next week or the following week. We'll bring that forward.
All right, that was quick. You should do them all. All right.
Don't say that too many times. These guys will take you up on it.
Next is Craig Gregory, who's going to talk to us about Public Works.
Thanks, Mayor, Commissioners. First thing I'd like to discuss with you today is the state of recycling within the United States and also our region. But I am going to rely on somebody that's maybe a little more knowledgeable than I am with recycling and hand it over to Jason Dokes.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've had to pull on the recycling hat. As you know, we're out of the waste and recycling business, but our residents still recycle. We're trusting Mason County Garbage to do the heavy lifting for us, as it were. Recently, and by recently I mean within the last couple of months, I've been seeing some news coming, across, because I was doing the recycling coordinator shtick for the city for 7-8 years. I'm not even sure how long. So I'm still on a lot of those listservs, the government listservs you see. And a few started catching my eye a couple months ago about a ban on recycled product from basically the Asian markets, China to be specific. What does that have to do with Shelton? Well, the entire West Coast, I'll get real big picture for you. The entire West Coast has gotten kind of lazy over the last 20 years. And the U.S. has a huge trade deficit with China. So all these boats are coming over to the western ports loaded with Chinese products, but we're not shipping anything over to them. So the recycling industry a couple decades ago got kind of innovative, and they said, hey, these empty boats are going back to China. Let's use them to shove them full of recycled product and see if the Chinese can recycle them. And you know what? They did. They recycled them really well, and they ate up huge amounts of metals, plastics, mixed paper, you name it, and they just couldn't eat enough of it for the last 20 years. A couple months ago, and I'd heard something about this years ago, but I don't think anyone in the industry actually thought this would happen. A couple months ago, the Chinese government announced to all Western nations, including Europe, that they're going to quit taking a number of products. And those include mixed waste paper, those include several types of plastic, several types of metal. I mean, I don't know all the specifics of it, but once I started seeing that, I kind of thinking to myself, oof, no pun intended, I mean, I kind of joked with Craig, I go, maybe it was a good thing we got out of the waste and recycling industry, because if I were still wearing the recycling coordinator hat, I'd be quite nervous right now about how to move forward educating our residents on what I see as potentially big changes coming in the next few years, or next few months, rather. So part of what we're going to be doing in the next month or so, I think, is working with Waste Connections and figuring out if there's going to be any real differences in our recycling program into the future. Just wanted to give you a heads up, because it really is a bottom-up thing with recycling. I mean, if the users, if the people putting products in the bins aren't aware of what can be taken and what can't, that can have a huge difference on the commodity price. And basically, the commodity price is how much you can get for these products. And it's already taken a nosedive, and the markets are drying up, from what I understand. So
how will that affect Shelton then?
don't know at this point. We just received an email from Waste Connections. I'm holding the piece of paper. It was from the Washington Refuse and Recycling Association, dated October 4th. They're just starting to weigh in on what the real impacts of this are. And unfortunately, I was reading over it in the early part of the meeting. A lot of it is very industry-specific stuff that I don't even understand. But what catches my eyes are, a lot of plastics are named, a lot of mixed waste paper. And if you think about what we're putting in our paper bins right now, it is by definition mixed waste paper. That's what it is. And I see all over this paper, mixed waste paper is no-go. So the question is,
What is mixed waste paper?
That's, in your paper bin
It would
at
be
your
your
home.
binder.
You're throwing in cardboard, you're throwing
Everything
in
within your
paper,
binder.
That's all mixed.
magazines, frozen food boxes, it all goes in there. That's mixed waste paper by design. And apparently they're shutting down the market on that. So we don't have a big market for that on the West Coast. So it really brings a big question in my mind, where's this stuff going to go?
Well, we'll find out, I guess.
We will find out.
I can't answer part of your question, Mayor.
Okay.
The Waste Connections is appealing to the UTC, who governs rates within solid waste and recycling. So they will be looking for some kind of increase. What that looks like to us, we're not sure yet, but it is defined within the contract. So that is one thing that we definitely got right within that contract, is what you can actually recycle within the city of Shelton. So that may be a discussion that we will have to have with Waste Connections of what that looks like to change that contract in the future.
All right. Did you have other things to talk about?
I do. So Washington State Patrol, who we needed to get connected through the process that we had to for loan forgiveness, and they are ahead of schedule by a couple of months. They should be hooked up by the end of this month, originally scheduled for the end of the year.
Wow.
So we should be able to get them hooked up and get their well in a disconnected state and be eligible for that loan forgiveness from Department of Drinking Water. So hopefully we should be able to get that taken care of by the deadline of June of 2018. And we're a little ahead of schedule on that right now. So
Great.
hopefully that
Very
will
good
get
news.
done and continue to move forward.
Craig, remind me how much that was, how much the loan forgiveness is?
2.25 million.
Okay, awesome.
The Olympic Highway South storm project is complete. The guys did a fabulous job up there getting that rerouted to the south side of the road, and hopefully fixing an issue that we've got up there underneath that highway. Also, the sewer main replacement on 8th from Wyandotte to Euclid. That was a sewer main that was failing for that block, and we've had quite a few issues up there in that area. But through city crews, they went up and replaced over 200 feet of sewer main and have fixed that problem. So they actually are scheduled to be done today on that project.
Bet those people are going to be glad about that.
We will have
Happy campers.
fewer calls, I hope, in
Yeah.
that area. Yeah, we had quite a belly where the sewage just sat in that line and caused quite a few problems. So hopefully we've got that fixed and got that problem taken care of. The water and sewer rate study is almost complete, if not complete. And the results and a Q&A session will take place on October 23rd from 5 to 6 o'clock at the Civic Center. So hopefully we can get a grasp on what our water and sewer rates actually look like here coming up in the years to come. They did 5 years?
6, I think.
6 years? So we should have a pretty good handle on what that looks like. And last thing, the Downtown Connector Project, or the Alder Olympic Highway North, that we are moving forward with on design. We will have an open house on October 25th at 6 o'clock at the Civic Center. That's a Wednesday. And we'll be discussing the actual project and any of those major changes that are proposed at this point for that project with the public, for those that show up. We've already gotten that out. Andy's done a great job of getting the word out on what we're kind of looking at. We'll be doing a couple of radio spots to talk about that. And also, we're going to present this to the Historic Preservation Board this Thursday.
Great.
And also, I've asked Heidi from the Chamber to pull the visioning group back together to also discuss this project and kind of the elements that are, the big ones that are going to be changed with that roadway. So we are trying to get as much word out as we can to the public and get some feedback from them.
And that's the 25th of October. What
That
night
is
is that?
That's a Wednesday
Okay.
at 6 p.m.
Okay.
There's been a lot of discussion and speculation that that project is going to definitely include a roundabout, but it's my understanding that there isn't enough space there for that. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay.
We looked into that. That was a possibility early on, but at this point, that has been ruled out. There's not enough room. So what the proposal at this point is to have through traffic on First Street, so coming down the hill.
Oh.
And also northbound traffic will have free movement, and then there will be a stop sign on Alder Street at First on both sides of the road. And we'll create a couple of turn lanes, one left and right-hand turn lane on Alder Street. And then you'll also have, for the northbound traffic on First Street, you'll have a left-hand turn lane and a straight-through lane there so that we don't get congested.
So coming down the hill, they'll just go straight through.
Correct. You will no longer
What
have
about my
that yield
fa-
sign
What about
there.
my favorite intersection, 7th, there, the 7th and Alder, by the library?
7th, we'll be getting a new signal with new mast arms,
Don't
a
mess
new
with my
cabinet.
intersection, man. Anything you want to do, don't mess with my intersection.
The configuration is not going to change. It's just going to get an upgrade with lighting and street traffic signals and a new cabinet.
Oh, that'll be really nice. So I just want to make it clear, no roundabout at First and Alder.
No modern intersection at First and
Off-
Alder.
off
That is
the
correct.
There's going to be a lot of
Okay.
people really thrilled about
I
that.
don't know why, I love roundabouts.
I do too.
I mean, you can
don't.
take me on roundabout all day long, and I just love it, but it does seem to really have some resistance, you know? I don't know why.
Do you stay in one of those all day long?
Well,
Drives around.
no, but I mean, I just like it. It was kind of like a game, like you're entering in, am I going to make it without getting hit? You know? So you kind of go, is he going, and so I don't know, it adds a
I
little
do not like-
excitement, you know,
no.
but
They are safer than a normal intersection.
Yes, they
Studies
are.
have shown.
They
I
are
just
safer.
tell you, I like them, but it does seem to raise a lot of, not in my backyard. So,
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, no.
Honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought a traffic circle would be perfect for that intersection and maybe ease some of the trepidation that people have whenever you would even say that word.
yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see. Definitely that intersection has been a problem child, so.
Yes, it has.
So that would be good. I wanted to ask you about, are you hoping to have the input from the Historic Preservation Board and the Visioning Group prior to the open house?
That is what we're hoping, yes.
Okay. And the open house will be at 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock.
On Wednesday, the 25th.
Okay, great.
So I know one thing is if we call, what do you call it, a lighted circle or something? What was instead of calling it a roundabout,
Traffic circle.
traffic circle,
Mm-hmm.
We like to call it a modern
a
intersection.
modern intersection. Okay, because that will, if you just get the word roundabout out of there, that probably would be better. So a modern intersection.
Don't give away our secrets, man.
Yeah, okay.
A traffic circle typically is just one lane around so that you don't have the larger two-lane merging all the way.
Modern. Anyway, any more questions for Craig Gregory on his public work? I will say that this is a kudos or a public compliment to Craig over this past year or so. You know, you are doing it right. And the
Thank you.
public works, you're doing it right. What you do is you look at grant opportunities, you look where you can combine things, you don't go out on extreme 30 years in advance or whatever, but I really appreciate the way you are running that department. And hopefully, the Alder Street experience can be majority like grant funded. Hopefully we can.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, because that's always my favorite subject, so.
Can I want to ask one more
Sure.
question? Has the library been consulted, the library board or the library manager been consulted about the 7th and Railroad to 8th and Railroad area?
I don't believe we have. We will certainly put them on our list
I know
to
they would
contact.
be very interested, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because that is one of the major changes that we are talking about, is partnering with MTA. We've already had discussions with MTA about bus pullouts or shelters, and that would mean closing off 8th Street.
And
Did you
to
say
traffic.
7th and Railroad and 8th and Railroad? You mean
I meant Alder.
Okay, I'm
I
going.
might have said Railroad, I meant Alder. I know that they'll be very interested because I do attend the library board meetings, and that speculation has come up, and I think that the closure of 8th would be a welcome piece of that. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a possibility, I know MTA has voiced a concern as far as getting their patrons up to the library. So there may be a possibility of a sidewalk going up 8th Street to connect to the entrance to
Oh, wow.
the library. So that's certainly something that we can touch base with them and see what their feelings are.
Great.
Any other questions for Craig Gregory? If not, we'll go to item number 2 on administration reports, and that's our city manager, and if he has anything to report.
Nothing more.
Okay, so our next meeting will be a regular meeting on Tuesday, October 17th at 6 p.m. in the evening. This meeting is adjourned.